He's here.
Yeah.
Nathan, somebody.
Did you get my message?
Yeah.
What can you tell me about your?
Get my right away stuck down my head.
Well, each one has to pay, no matter what.
What time the
Pay,
tornado hit, but
get called in.
I looked out and I was like, I don't know what time it was, that time frame.
Meat, paper
And we had hail, and I was
Each
looking up
place
back
is
there, it
different.
was like a river
The way I
running
look
through
at
our yard,
that,
and the rain was going straight down. We have those little whirly
This thing
wind
goes
things.
60, you get paid 30 minutes.
No,
Because
there was
everything over it's ready
nowhere.
to
Mm-hmm.
It was all in those tornadoes, and I told you,
go. That's the way, but I could be wrong, but that's the way I was thinking.
I'm like, well,
Mhm.
trying to see it on the, that was,
Clarify
it was obvious,
and,
there was
Sell this one.
none. Just,
section.
I've never seen rain like that, hail, and absolutely not a drop of rain. Not a drop.
I don't think I've got any.
We had hail.
Yeah, a couple of sons was outside of town, they got it.
Okay, yeah.
It was pea-sized,
You followed,
hard like
the
that.
truck followed you today, was gone.
Guy goes to church, he was
Was
on
it
the Sunday
the
after that.
retention pond north here? Is
He
that
was, he was at the racetrack, looked at Mason Winter Park.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
The wind.
We know that.
Yeah, pick that
He
up.
said, I've never seen that that way.
Of that George said.
Call the meeting to order.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The meeting was called to order at 6:30 p.m. with the following entering roll call. Mayor Luma?
Here.
Fox?
Here.
Ball?
Here.
Hudson? Here. Nichols?
Yes. Here.
Miller? Okay, thank you. Miller?
Yes, here.
Walty?
Here.
Previous meeting, minutes of the previous meeting were read and approved. So approved. Fiscal officer's report.
As you can tell, I'm not the fiscal officer. She's at training, so I will be reading her report. Fiscal officer reported $1,526,175.37 in all funds and $304,929.20 in the general fund.
Okay. The bills were read. A motion was made by,
So moved.
seconded by,
Second.
to pay the bills presented.
Fox?
Yes.
Ball?
Yes.
Hudson?
Yes.
Nichols?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
And Walty?
Yes.
Okay, committee reports. Got anybody for utilities? Streets and storm?
No, I don't think you didn't meet.
I have
How about safety?
one, just under the.
No.
Records?
No.
Park?
Parks met on Wednesday, March 20th. The committee discussed the park swing set, and the village is providing new seats for them, due to them being ripped and cracked and safety reasons. We also met discussing the men's restroom walls. One of them has graffiti on it, and we talked about painting it.
No, this
We also talked about using the grindings at the north end of the park, for extending the parking lot back there, to get rid of the grindings that are an eyesore back there. Administrative vendor asked the committee if the volleyball net should be replaced. They do not want to remove it until they have something in place of it. And member Nichols mentioned that she knows a resident that has something to replace it with, and I can let her mention that. I forget the name of the pit.
It's a Gaga pit. I did connect Aaron with the individual, and so Aaron can probably, I don't know. if
He hasn't reached back out yet, so.
I think they're on vacation.
Yeah, just sit and wait game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We talked about replacing it because it's really not getting used, and a little change down there wouldn't be a bad thing. And that's all the Parks Committee really discussed down
It's graffiti inside or outside?
there, inside.
Inside, really?
When are we gonna lock those up? What's that? I don't know, we just unlocked it.
We haven't unlocked them. Watching the weather, was hoping down, there's low 20 in the night, but I think low 20 aren't lasting that long, so no doubt next week we'll have them open. That way for the eclipse weekend, we'll have public restrooms available.
Building and property maintenance,
Our meeting came to order at 6:03 PM on March 20th. The purpose of our meeting was to brainstorm questions we would send to the solicitor pertaining to specifically for our committee before our meeting with her on April 3rd. And the people who were there was Chief Motter, Aaron Bender, Deborah Ball, Lisa Nichols, and Tim Walty. The majority of our discussion was the due process the village needs in place for property owners and legal ramifications. It was determined the current manual for our committee differs from the new zoning ordinance, so therefore with legal counsel's clarification, the committee will be revising our manual over the next few months with our meetings, and I showed scheduled meeting times, and we adjourned at 7:09.
okay. How about finance committee?
Finance committee met, October 12th. We basically discussed some of the stuff we're going to wait to take care of next month with Sarah's here. She'll be here, and the people from the RITAs will be here to kind of discuss what their solution is. And then we'll also discuss about the clothing and the uniforms and the cell phone use come next month. But Sarah's here, so she'll be able to record it a little better.
Okay. Zoning?
Zoning committee met on March 14th at 11 a.m. We had several discussions, probably related to some questions that were raised by some of the property owners in relationship to, one was placing a second home on a fairly large lot, and that was a continuation from our last meeting. We also had a discussion regarding temporary storage units. I think it's important that the people of the community know, and if they're planning on putting in a temporary storage unit, which described in the zoning, I'm going to read this because we're on camera. These types of units commonly consist of storage trailers, roadworthy or not, such as old semi-trailers, cargo containers, small hauling trailers or trailer boxes, commercially available temporary storage boxes, etc. There are several categories within that. What I would like for council to remind people, if asked, is that if they plan on placing a temporary storage unit, that they need to contact the village administrator, because there will be an application for that process within the zoning. Those types of things are only allowed to be in place for 4 calendar weeks. They can get a second usage in the same year, but it has to be 8 weeks after that. So obviously what I think the zoning was trying to do was limit some of these containers that are sitting forever and they become dilapidated and they get full of whatever, and then it becomes a safety and health hazard. But we did, and I gave Aaron a copy. We talked about creating a temporary storage unit or temporary enclosures, the way it's described in zoning application process. And last month, so that's in place. And then the other issue that I would bring to council's attention is on the back of the minutes. We made some recommendations in terms of additional fees for various items. We've already enacted the application for a building permit with the sliding scale based on the cost of the building. What we did not enact, what we did talk about, was an application for a zoning district amendment or change. That particular item would be if someone wanted to change their property from residential to commercial, or from commercial to residential, or a business make a zoning classification change or district amendment. The committee is recommending a $50 fee for that, as well as an application for a zoning variance would be a $50 fee. And the reason those fees we're recommending that amount is that in the statute, we are required, the council and the zoning board is required to send notices by mail to all of the residents that adjoin the property asking for the change, as well as all the properties across the street from them. So in some instances, 4 or 5, maybe even 6, it just depends on where the property is at. Plus the fee for Aaron to have to go out and investigate, and then Sarah's cost as the clerk to do all of that kind of stuff and filing and all of that. So that's why we put that at that cost. And then the other would be the temporary use permit for storage enclosures would be $25. Again, Aaron would have to go out and inspect those and make sure that because there is part of the ordinance that says exactly where you can put those, where they're allowed within the zoning that we approved in October. So I don't know how we move forward with that. I would assume that we'll have to have our solicitor come up with a resolution to adopt those, maybe at our next meeting.
Lisa, would, like, you see that people set the pods, like if they're self-moving, would that come under this?
It says specifically, and I'll have to get the zoning out there, but it says specifically in what I quoted from it, commercially available temporary storage boxes,
Okay.
et cetera.
So
So
that-
yeah, like a pod.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And obviously, if there was, God forbid, if we would have some kind of catastrophe and it would need to be those, then we would, we by council could suspend that rule and extend it or make whatever kinds of needs there could be. And I would remind folks, and you guys can do this as well, when there is extenuating circumstances, that's when you come to the committee and say, I have extenuating circumstances, I need a variance and this is why. And then they could make that decision to provide an extension of that time if necessary.
Thank you.
That's all I have, thank you.
Okay, police report.
One moment. Thank you. Bell Park Media, which provides weather services in Ohio, Indiana, and the western part of Pennsylvania through the Ohio News and Weather app, has donated a weather station to the Waynesfield Police Department in exchange for linking it to the Tempest Weather Network. Tempest, the name of the brand of the weather station, has the ability to tie into the Bell Park network to enhance their ability to track weather changes and directly impact the forecasting for Waynesfield and area residents. This $500 donation is located on top of the municipal building and is solar powered with a battery backup system. Seeing our specific weather data can be accessed through the free Tempest app on your phone, or the free Ohio News and Weather app, also available for download through the Google Play or Apple Store. Many thanks to weather specialist Nick Dunn, who works for WHIO-TV, Channel 7 in Dayton, and is co-founder of the Ohio News and Weather and Bell Park Media, for his donation to the police department and village. Speaking of weather, which is most of my report tonight, on Thursday, March 14th, there were multiple tornadoes that caused damage in the region. One of the hardest hit regions was the Indian Lake areas of Lakeview, Russell's Point, Washington Township, and areas in between. I received an urgent phone call at approximately 8 p.m. from Russell's Point Chief Joe Fryhoff asking for immediate assistance. I was out of town at the time, so I contacted Patrolman Humes and asked him to go on duty to check on the well-being of Waynesfield while I was returning. I wanted to ensure there was no damage aside from power being lost as I returned to the village. Once Patrolman Humes surveyed the village for any damage, he reported back to me that there was no significant damage in town. By the time he was able to confirm that we had no significant damage, I was back in town and I responded to the Orchard Island area of Washington Township. As I got into Lakeview, it was obvious they also had significant damage and needed immediate law enforcement help. I then instructed Patrolman Humes to respond to Lakeview and assist in whatever they needed. Patrolman Humes remained there until 2 a.m., at which point he went home and rested. I remained in the Orchard Island area to assist with search and rescue and recovery operations. After 25 very long consecutive hours of being on duty, I was advised that I needed to return home to rest. I did so for a few hours, then returned to continue with emergency response. Patrolman Humes also worked most of the day and evening on Friday and all day on Sunday.
Saturday.
I'm sorry, Saturday, yeah, it would be helpful if I read that correctly. Yeah, thank you. Outside about the first 3 days of the tornado, I split time between Waynesfield and Indian Lake. To date, Patrolman Humes has worked 57.5 hours in the disaster area, whereas I have worked 116.25 hours. From March 14th until the start of this meeting, I've worked a total of 148.5 total hours for an additional 32.25 hours just in Waynesfield alone. This coming week, there will be 2 more days where I will be assisting Washington Township. However, the Waynesfield Police Department's assistance on this disaster is slated to finish this Friday. I did tell Washington Township Chief Michael Thompson that if something happened and they needed additional help, excluding the eclipse weekend, then we would still be able to help them. The need for law enforcement resources that know the area at Indian Lake is still significant and will likely be ongoing for the next several months. He told me that he thought they would be okay beginning in April, but thanked the Waynesfield Village and Police Department for our assistance. For purposes of transparency, I'm reporting all this to council because there have been some questions by a few community members as to why I've been at Indian Lake so much. I've had multiple conversations with individuals at both the Logan and Alglades County levels, as well as the state level with regards to reimbursement of resources, which includes manpower, fuel, etc. Multiple times I've been assured that agencies that have been involved in this disaster scene will be reimbursed for expenses through the natural disaster declaration made by the governor and potentially FEMA, which is slated to visit the area tomorrow. Since this is not the first disaster scene the Village of Waynesfield and Police Department has been involved in, I'm familiar with the paperwork involved with the Ohio EMA and FEMA. While it may take some time for reimbursement, we have received those funds in the past. So I am optimistic that we will receive reimbursement with this disaster as well. During the March 14th tornado warning here in Alglades County, the Waynesfield and one other community's outdoor tornado siren did not sound when activated. The county controls the activation of the siren. However, according to Alglades County EMA Director Troy Anderson, there are 4 primary issues that could cause the siren to not activate correctly. Lightning in the area causing a static disruption or blown fuses, cell service interruption, a mechanical or software issue, and human error are the 4 primary reasons the siren may not sound. As to why the tornado siren did not go off in Waynesfield on March 14th, the matter is being investigated to determine the likely cause. If it was lightning interference or a cell signal disruption, there may not be much that can be done to prevent this problem from happening in the future. I do know that our cell tower was knocked out for a period of time, so they're leaning towards that might be being the issue, along with a tremendous amount of lightning in the area at that time. So they are still investigating that. I do want to mention the tornado siren is not designed to be the sole source of a notification of a tornado warning. Residents are encouraged to have alternative ways to receive severe weather alerts, including but not necessarily limited to purchasing a NOAA weather radio. There are a number of weather radios available ranging from about $30 to $60. There are battery-powered, solar-powered, and even hand-crank radios that can be purchased. As is the case in this most recent storm, some Wi-Fi and cell services were disrupted, so warnings might not have been received in a timely manner. A NOAA weather radio might be the best backup option available at this time. I have one final update regarding the April 8th eclipse. We are in the final preparation stages for the event with the county and state, coupled with our local resources. In the last month, we have had a couple of people from Columbus and Michigan ask about viewing locations within the village. We've actually had some people ask about the restrooms as well. There have not been any inquiries to the police department regarding camping, though I do expect there to be possible issues with people coming into the village to camp out for the weekend. Patrolman Humes and I will be on duty for most of the weekend, and of course Monday, April the 8th. If the forecast indicates a possible sunny or even partly cloudy day, I would anticipate crowds in and around the village to be more. However, if the day looks to be cloudy and or overcast, then I anticipate we will see a lot of pass-through traffic, but maybe not a lot of people will actually stay here in town.
Nathan, is there any way that this tornado siren can be activated manually?
So I've been told that the fire department does have access to activate it manually. The other community that I was referring to, that their siren did not go off when the county activated it. Their fire chief did activate it manually. So I don't know how to do that. I know the activation button is inside the fire department. So that would be a question for the fire chief.
When we get down to the disaster management plan, that might be something to add to. I know Aaron's going to get to that, but that might be something to add to that plan, if there could be 2 or 3 people that maybe would
Yeah.
have access. And I know getting in the fire department's a whole other issue.
Right, that's gonna be the
That's a whole
primary
other
issue.
issue, and working
Sure.
with them to get that done, but
We
Absolutely.
could actually give the chief or whoever's over there, pay.
well, I don't think it's a matter of pay, it's a matter of being available,
Accessibility is,
accessibility, and having, you know, just like you were out of town.
right,
You
right,
know, so if you were our only other contact,
right,
you wouldn't be able to do it because you were out of town.
correct, yeah,
So having some mechanism,
yeah,
to be able to activate that, and I know people need to have backup too, but
right.
if we could manually do that, that would be,
Yeah, I definitely think that's a discussion, in the safety committee, you know, when we talk about the disaster plan, which I know that's on the agenda, so I won't go into that a lot, but, the safety committee should have a conversation with those that are involved in the safety side of things.
thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
And thank you for your time.
I don't wanna do this again.
No.
I don't ever want to have to go
People
through
don't
this.
want it to happen again.
Then I've learned a lot though, and when we talk about learning, I've taken notes this whole time. Every day I've logged that I've been down there, the things that we've done, the things I've learned that will help this community. And things that maybe a disaster plan hadn't covered because you just don't think about it until things start going rapid fire. So, while, I would never hesitate to help another sister community next to us, it's been an on-the-job learning experience that, again, I hope we never have to use, but it will definitely help with the preparation.
I know the physical toll and the emotional toll, and all I can say to you, young man, is remember to take care of yourself.
Yep, there's some time coming up here soon that I might get off, barring any catastrophic weather we may experience tomorrow.
Adrenaline does a lot.
There's a chance for some severe weather tomorrow, so.
Adrenaline does a lot.
It does.
But it catches up to you, no matter how young you are.
Yeah, you have to find a balance, that's for sure.
Not only that, but I was watching somebody today about mental things, and the emotional part of that
Oh, sure.
should have had to be intense.
Sure, there'll be some books written out of this event, I'm sure. So, there's a lot of stories, and it's been sometimes a roller coaster ride, but the community support from all the communities surrounding and across the nation has been absolutely fantastic. So, it's been amazing to see that.
I have one question, it's not near on the level as what we. It would be for the park committee as well as Nathan. You mentioned something about restroom facilities.
Yeah.
People asking about that. Are we gonna leave the porta potties available for that event?
I think it wouldn't be a bad idea. I'll leave that up to Aaron. If the outside restrooms are open, you've got, 1 stall and 2 urinals on the boys' side, and I think 3 stalls on the female side. If you leave the porta potty out there, it may confuse people, and they may only have access to the porta potty and not be able to use the restrooms, unless you put a sign on there that says.
Well, my thought there was if the day's nice enough, we would just take the porta potties there. Which is another, usually we open it, we call the
Right.
company, and they come back and get it. Just slide that down
Okay,
in the parking lot a little bit.
that
And if
way,
it's a nice enough day, where if it's not blowing
sure.
15 degrees below zero, we can have the door propped.
Oh, yeah, the door's
On the
closed.
restroom,
Yeah.
so that they would know that they're open, and if it was an influx, the porter John's there, and just have it scheduled to be picked up the 10th or 11th.
Yeah, excuse me, to that point, if we give it up, we won't be able to call them and get more because they've all been rented out all across the affected area. So if we can maintain it, it's probably good to have that for an extra day or 2.
People be knocking on doors, please let me use your restroom.
No,
Well-
keep going behind bushes this morning.
Sure. Well, and that,
That's what I do.
you know, that brings up the point, you know, we had, one of the churches here ask, if our park restrooms would be open because they are using, they have to keep their parking lot open, but they don't really want people going in and out of the church using their facilities. So they wanted to have a place to send folks when they come. So having the park available, that keeps them out of going to maybe some other businesses to do their business.
Anything else or anything? Okay, Village Administrator?
I'll just hit some highlights on the written report. On the electric side of things, we did take the bucket truck down and had it retested. For whatever reason, not sure, they weren't sure either, but it tested fine down there. So, not sure why that was, but it doesn't hurt to be double secured to know that, you know, we're safe when we're up and using that around those lines. We do have record of that, it's on file, but it did pass down there, so pretty confident on that side of things. The 24 hours that we were out of power, you know, we have the generator at the park, which runs the whole park building, in the shop, and the water plant. And we have one at the lagoons running the pumps out there, we have one up here, we also have a portable there at the stoplight, so there has to be somebody here 24/7 to monitor those for fuel and make sure that things are working as they should, so kudos to the fellows that everybody jumped in and everybody took a shift and, you know, make sure that happened that way.
Nice.
A little update on the water side of things. As of last week, we got about 175 meters in. The guys are working diligently on that. Again, it just, what we have run into this week is all the rain we got last week. There's several that are in crawl spaces and there's standing water there. So the homeowners don't necessarily always look down there or know if their sump pumps are running or not. So it's schedule it to be rescheduled. So we've run into that issue. But there's still progress being made, no doubt there. I'm hoping that by the end of May, we've got about 90% of the meters in. One question I have for council, and it wasn't on here, is I know we had spoke about waiting till all the water meters were in until we went ahead and moved on to the charging per 1,000 gallon on the sewer side. If we get that 90%, if we're waiting on a contractor to come in or some folks that we have to meet schedules, do we want to wait till it's 100% every meter in, or do we want to go at 90%? Because with the 60-day window, we want to make sure that we get that information out to the residents. With that information, you know, we'll let them know that there'll be dye packs up here for toilets, that if you think your toilets are then short of having some food coloring, just drop in the bowl or the tank and then see if it bleeds through the bowl, then we'll have packs up here. You know, another thing we would do is, you know, have a flyer on water conservation. You know, there's some things we need to do. I just want to make sure that if we want to move forward with this at 90% or 95%, or we want to wait till everyone's in. You know, that was my question. That kind of gives me a timeline on when and how we want to move forward with letting the
What is your
residents know.
perspective on the 10%?
As far as what?
How long do you think that'll take?
I would hope 60 days, but again, you know, I have sent letters out. I made a letter up saying, you know, we've tried to get a hold of some folks that if they don't have a name, a number, or email for us to get a hold of them, we knocked on the doors. We did that several times. So I made a letter up saying that, you know, if we can't get in touch with you, or you can get in touch with us and set an appointment in the next 7 days, we will have to shut your water off. That got their attention. And, you know, when we knew this going forward, more so since we're doing everything in-house, that there are going to be times that we have to have guys work over. Everybody doesn't work the same hours that we do. So like tomorrow, we have meters scheduled to be changed out up until 5 o'clock. But we went ahead and made that schedule full all the way till 5 o'clock. So we're working with people as much as we can. You know, if we have to work some Saturdays and stuff like that to affiliate and accommodate other folks' working schedules, that's what we'll do.
Gotcha.
So, you know.
So it's just the problematic.
Yeah, and there's some crawl spaces that, you know, they're just physically we can't get to. I've talked to a couple contractors and they said that they would help out. If we can't do that, in worst case scenario, we have to put a pit outside. You need good weather to dig it and put it in. You know, there has been questions throughout this process of, hey, I don't want it in my house, we want it out the road. That's fine, we have to pay a tap-in fee. Because a tap-in, you already have it, and if you want it moved out of your house and in the ground in a meter pit, you have to pay that tap-in fee because to cover parts and material.
And how much is that now?
$500. Yep.
Tap-in fee?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep, for water service.
I guess my question here would be, we had a list, or we had a way to determine whose water meters were not functioning.
Mm-hmm.
If within that 10%, we don't have any meters that are not functioning,
Mm-hmm.
in other words, really everybody is being metered in some form or fashion, then I don't see why we couldn't move forward with beginning that billing.
Okay.
But if there are people who are not metered, and so therefore they're not being billed fairly like everybody else, then it seems like we should wait.
Mhm.
I don't know what.
That was kind of my thought process too, and I don't know what these, I can tell you right now, the ones that we have had issues with, that we either can't get to or whatnot, more so the ones we can't get to, physically get to, they are working. So to that point, if we get down to that last 10% and, there's one or two or three, whatever it would be, out of that 10% that don't work, we would do due diligence to work on those first.
Mm-hmm.
If it was a pit that we needed to dig or whatever, we would do those first. So to get to that, out of that 10% that we may have left, if there's 15 that don't work out of that, we would work on those first.
Because if we're gonna bill and everybody's being metered in some way, then everybody's being treated somewhat fairly.
Mm-hmm.
But you're saying, that if we activated it today, it would be 60 days. Is that what you're saying?
That's the ordinance that we have to get.
We have to give 60 days notice before we activate that.
So you're asking permission at this meeting to.
No, not activate, we're not there yet.
Okay.
I'm hoping by the end of May, we have 90% of the meters in.
Okay.
If we have those, we would have to go to July's billing for June.
Okay.
But I need to know what we're talking about.
Oh, when you
If,
get
out of that
to
10%, if there's 4 or 5 meters that don't work, replace those, and then council's good with going ahead, send them those letters out, send them those flyers out, and letting everybody know that, hey, this is what's gonna be coming.
Did we pass a resolution regarding that?
Yes.
So we would have,
23-3-3, I believe.
so we would have to change that resolution.
Well, they're all metered. They would all be metered that way. They did that,
If-
new meters.
They would all be, that's what I'm saying, if they were all metered,
Mhm.
even the ones all the ones that we know that are not working have a meter on them
Correct.
that's working.
Mhm.
Then we would meet the.
I can talk to Lynette about that, but I have a feeling that as long as they have a meter that works, whether it's new or old,
I think I would ask her
yeah,
about that.
but I'll clarify that with her. So that gives me good clarification, and I know, what time frame wise moving forward there. Parks, Vern hit the highlights there that, the grass is green up, it's gonna start getting busy, so, along with helping with the storm down at Lakeview and water meters and everything else that's going on, grass is growing, we'll have to start mowing, trying to get those things done at the park that are time sensitive to folks using it down there. A couple things we did have go on, for future thoughts when it comes to power outage being out that long. We do have 2 lift stations. One is out at the industrial park, the other one's out at the medical center area. We are going to look into putting fittings we can use our trash pumps in the lift station at the industrial park. Didn't give a lot of thought of that it may be full because we knew the power was out, factory wasn't running, but there was quite a bit of I&I in there, so I did have Deegan come in and pump that down with their back truck, just so, because we didn't know at that power point when the power was going to be back on. At the medical center area, we're looking at that to see what it will take to put a smaller generator out there, for those longer spells. Those 2 things were probably the biggest ones that we probably weren't prepared for enough, but I don't think there's any issues either.
Would that be a portable generator?
Yeah, yep, and the fellows just read meters and they got some pictures, I just have to get some boots on the ground and see if it's 220 or 110, if it's 220, what the amps are on the pump, what it draws, and know if it's a generator we have that works, or if we need to get one small enough, it's back off the road enough and it's in the sod, but if you have a storm event, you're not gonna get a truck back there, and you don't want lead lines laying across the grass, so we want something portable enough to be able to get back there and be able to make that function, so. Post-storm updates, I reached out to Lakeview, that night, knowing that they were hit the hardest. I reached out to Russell's Point as well. Lakeview, they didn't know which way to go yet, it was that early. Talked to them the next day, I talked to the administrator the next day, and he was having issues with the water plant, they were actually using more water than they could pump. Because when you have the house trailers and the smaller houses that just disappeared, you have service lines just blowing. So he was, and they didn't have power at their water plant, so they had to monitor a generator and run the plant by hand, so reached out to him and let him know if there's anything we could do. Went a couple of days, they kind of got their bearings where they knew what they needed. They come up one time and got a truckload of electrical parts. I took some more down that they thought they didn't need that same day. We took some wire down to them for the main feed lines that we had. And transformers, they run a different voltage than we do, so we can't help them with transformers, but I did let them know that we do have a good supply of power poles, that if they get to that point, let us know, and we'll facilitate however we can with that. I got a call yesterday from the electrical side of things, and they asked if we had a grapple bucket for the skid loader, which we do, asked if we could use it. Long story short, I ended up saying absolutely not a problem on the grapple bucket, and called them back and said, hey, do you need another skid loader? Do you need manpower? What do you need? What can we help with if you need something? So what we did, ended up coming up with, is we sent one person down there today with our dump truck with the gravel bucket in it. They put our gravel bucket on their skid loader, and we had one guy down there all day. What they were wanting to do is get all the poles cleaned up and get them in a spot, because you can't just throw those through a grinder because there's copper and metal and everything else in it. So very happy to be able to help them, because there's not a lot that little Waynesfield can help them with. You know, Nathan and I talked about it, we don't keep track, but it always feels like the scale is a little bit heavy on us asking them versus us being able to help them. So it's pretty humbling to be able to help those folks when they're in the need that they are. So that's really kind of where we're at with that. That's really all I have.
I have a question. Do you think, as a council, I was surprised, especially after I saw the mess Sunday, that they got the electricity on so quickly when there was so much devastation down there. Is there any way for us to thank them for being so quick?
Well, it depends who you talk to, how quick it was. There's folks it took 2-3 days.
Right, but I mean for Waynesfield.
Oh, well, that would be on AES. That's not Lakeview. I will say I called the direct line I have to AES at 7:45 that night. They didn't have crews out yet. They knew that they had a line down, didn't know what it was, and I don't want to be that fellow that's calling every half hour wanting to know. I knew it was bad. Nathan and I talked. I think Nathan, you were driving through when we had talked, and we knew how bad it was. So the best thing we could do is, as we're monitoring the generators, taking phone calls, letting people know that, hey, some of the folks that called didn't even know that there was a tornado that went through Lakeview.
That's how I knew, was that maybe, I don't know, like a day after or something.
Yeah.
So it would have been nice if people, I mean, I guess it would just be nice if
Well,
everybody
and
knew
you have
that.
to be careful also. If I get a call from AES and they say, hey, power's going to be on within the hour,
Yeah, and then it's not.
and then it's not, then you're up for ridicule.
Right, but that's you, not
Mhm.
all of us.
Yeah.
Consecutive.
Yeah.
Correct.
So then it's a lot of it is communication. A lot of folks don't know that we're fed through Lakeview, that our main power feed comes through Lakeview. Once you let people know that is how we're fed, and then you kind of get an aha moment out of some folks. So it's never easy, and hopefully with the upgrades coming, whenever they may or may not come, well, they will come eventually. I don't have anything to add to that other than, hopefully we can get to where we're fed bilaterally. That if we do have that situation, we can turn it off there, turn it on from another direction, and we wouldn't have those circumstances. But until that happens, that's where we're at.
But wasn't it good timing?
I think the linemen did a phenomenal job.
Yeah,
So Nathan can probably attest to that more, but there was not, I doubt there was even a way to get from this side of Lakeview to the stop sign at 235.
I was
There
driving
was
over-
no way to
yeah.
even get through that road.
Yeah, I was driving over sidewalks to get through.
Yeah, so for the linemen to get those poles up and get the lines established and get us electricity in 25 hours was incredible.
So I think it would be nice if we could let them know that.
Sure.
Because they've worked hard and we
Well,
want them to
absolutely.
know we appreciate it.
And AMP does a really good job. They called me that night. And then I talked to them again Friday mid-morning. And I'll be honest, AMP said, don't be surprised if it's 2 days, 48 hours before we have power.
They did, I thought it would be
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
I was ready to go to bed
It
when
was
the lights
Hampshire.
came off and I'm like, oh.
Yeah,
Just the devastation.
it was 2 days for Hampshire.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
For us.
I know that, but just for us,
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, but I mean,
Yeah, so as far as thanking
how
AES
do we do that?
through AMP,
I mean, do we send a card? Do we?
I think.
The mayor could write a letter if he wanted to.
Yeah.
The mayor could write a letter from the council saying that, given the devastation in Lakeview and whatever, he can word it ever how he wants, but the mayor could write a letter to AES thanking them and wanting them to thank the linemen, because the linemen are the ones that did it.
Right,
The
right.
guys who left their home in the middle of the night
they're out there and all that.
and out there
Rain
in the rain and
crap
everything,
and
so,
stuff.
yeah.
I'm sure
Wind
they
blowing it.
also worked long hours. Is
So-
that possible, Whitey? Thank you.
Aaron, on the electric, a lot of consternation on the part of some village residents, and I know Nathan kind of said this, there's always somebody that's gonna complain. There's always somebody that's gonna not see the whole picture and only see that, hey, I don't have electricity. But correct me if I'm wrong, in the last year, and I've been on council long enough, but in the last year, we inside the village have had power losses, but none of them were related to our infrastructure failing. It was either because somebody hit a pole or AES didn't give us electric. Is that correct?
It is, and part of that come from, we spent a lot of money trimming trees in 1 year. We spent upwards of $30,000 on trimming trees. It was needed. It's one of the things where if you wait till the last minute, it's all going to snowball on you. So that's one thing that helped. I know since I've been in this position, the town has not had a total outage because of anything that the village applies. To Lisa, to your point, if a car hit a telephone pole, yes, there's a section out. I believe this is the third one that has been at length, that the whole town has been out. Obviously the tornado, the other one was, there was a thunderstorm and they could not get trucks where they needed to go. That was 9 hours. I read the comments and it's trying. You hear the folks that, well, every time the wind blows, power goes out. Not since I've been here. I've been here going on 3 years.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. No.
No.
Is there a way to rebuttal?
No, you can't get it. I don't think you can get into that conversation on Facebook.
No.
You can't do it.
No, and I'd be happy to take the phone call or have somebody come in and have that conversation. No problem.
people still got their own opinions.
Believe me, I wanted to get on there and say something, but I just kept my mouth shut.
So, yes, what we've been doing, what we've been maintaining for, and this all goes back to relying on AMP for alignment. What we're able to do on preventative maintenance, taking out some of this open wire that is 3 strands separated versus a 3 in a braided line, it just takes that much less abuse. And a lot of this stuff is old. I reported, out here by the Humble place, the place to go. The transformer we took down was 80, 90 years old.
Oh,
So, and it was still doing its job. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just that's how old the infrastructure. Some of the
that's how
infrastructure
good they
is.
made it.
Yeah.
I don't know, and if it's something that maybe we could start doing, you can run it past the utilities committee, but maybe on an annual basis, do a status report that says, hey, we lost electricity, and post it somewhere. We lost electricity, on, what was the parade the kids had because a semi ran through and tore a line down. So this section was out on this day, and we were able to repair it in this amount of time. So that people have concrete data instead of
Homecoming.
homecoming.
Right, but it wasn't this one.
No,
I don't know.
the one
It was
before.
the year
It's one
before.
before.
Yep.
But, so people, we can go, hey, look, we gave you a report, we know the power was out, and here's the reasons why. Otherwise, you get these people, what, the wind blows, that's why the power's out.
It'd be nice if you put that out there and the right folks read it, but I believe the ones that understand it, we're going to be the ones that read it, and the ones that don't understand it or appreciate it, it's not gonna matter. But it wouldn't hurt once a
Could
year,
be
put
like
some
a
stats out.
fiscal report though, in that respect.
Mhm.
Just once a year, it doesn't have to,
Right.
you just.
Maybe a
once
year-end
year.
report.
Yeah, just, and it's a time, in my mind, Aaron, it's also a time for you as a village administrator in the village to throw over. Hey, we put in X number of new water meters that are now, 90% efficient
Mhm.
basis the 50% efficient that we had, and you should have this or that. Or,
Mhm.
we put in new drains and,
Sure.
all of the things that that we're doing that I don't think some people know because they're involved.
Mhm.
Other people don't know unless they read it.
I know there's other places that do a year-end report of just the projects that were done.
Mhm.
It kind of shows folks where their money was spent, why it was spent, and things like that. I don't think it's a bad idea.
That could go out with electric though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep, you could make a flyer. Yep.
I know some electric, my brother gets that, and his, once a year, they report
Mm-hmm.
what they've spent, how much money, and blah, 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 blah. I think, Ohio Public Utilities Commissions may require them to do that because they're a
Mm-hmm.
different agency than we are, so.
Still, that would be very informative and good.
I'd just like to say, I want to thank Nathan, Aaron, helping Lakeview out. It's no difference than help us out. You gotta show that humanity, and so there's no problem whatsoever. There's actually, it's gone beyond cold business, and that's what, I just want to say thank you both.
We appreciate knowing that, I'll speak for Nathan, I appreciate knowing the council's behind us because, there's times where we just take it and run with it because it was time sensitive and we feel that we were doing the right thing.
Yep, because there'll be a time we might need the help.
Yes, absolutely.
Mutual aid, that's all it is.
Mhm.
I was curious, we all get the
Shows what a
answer,
good community we
and they
are.
talked about for sales. I was just wondering if they were able to send the transformers down there that we were thinking about getting.
Yeah, different transformers.
Different transformers,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
I saw the name and I thought,
Yep.
oh, that'd be cool if they did.
Yeah, when you get those reports and you see how many other municipalities and power companies come in and help on something like that, you think, well, this is really close, why didn't they come? Well, they're in a different sector. That's why they went one way and everybody else went the other way. But I've been down there and the support, again, the stories we can tell, we'll tell for decades because hopefully it's a once in a lifetime ordeal. But the outpour of support for just on what I seen going down and taking the electric guy stuff, the amount of food, water, Gatorade they had, home cooked meals. And there's nothing wrong with a food truck, because there's been food trucks down there, but, those fellows are working 16-hour days. And they go home for 8. Some of them got to drive an hour, hour and a half before they can even get home. So, hats off to the folks that from start to finish, from volunteering and giving the food to the fellows that had to put the hours in.
Like Saturday when they cleaned up, that group of people cleaned up Glacier Hills, they covered 400 acres of fields in 2 hours. How many people showed up?
What was it?
They cut the
You can't go.
debris that was all scattered around, can't cover by fiber. That's amazing, 400 acres with Denise in it,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
that was there.
We will cover
Especially
this
with
stuff
all
sooner.
the water in the soil.
Well, I know that, and I feel this strongly, that Nathan, they may tell you they don't need you after April 1st, but it's just like anything else. A little later, when things settle down and people, all of this help starts to dissipate,
Mm-hmm.
that's when they're really gonna need us as their neighbors
Well-
to continue.
I can tell you they're worried immensely about the eclipse and the 4th of July because they're not going to be recovered by the 4th of July. And The Eclipse, of course, I said, we're all in the same boat on the Eclipse, but they've actually encouraged people to go elsewhere other than Indian Lake, but people have already rented. The state park is completely rented out. All the campgrounds are rented out. There's going to be a lot of people there that come. And then you'll have people that do come up specifically for that and want to see where the damage was at, and so they're going to,
They
yeah,
have a lot of
absolutely.
traffic, they need somebody who's directing traffic.
Yeah, they will, and they don't have, I mean, typically on the 4th of July, they need our help anyway, and we can't offer that during the eclipse, so, they're struggling with some things right now, but, the conversation's already been had of, you know, what are we gonna do around the 4th, and then, you know, Labor Day usually isn't as bad, Memorial Day is not as bad, but, people are coming. I mean, it's a tourist area, so a lot of properties are Airbnbs, so you get weekenders and tourists that come up all year long, and so I'll see when I go down there tomorrow kind of how the normal stuff is. But when I worked yesterday down there, we started having some actual law enforcement calls, and that puts a strain on the infrastructure too. So you were trying to get, 500 volunteers showed up to clean up around the water yesterday. And we knew they were coming, but we didn't know how many. And at one point, Orchard Island was shut down again, and I called the chief and said, what's going on here? I know there's volunteers, but they're everywhere. It's great, but it creates logistical problems and keeping everything flowing. And he came down, and he was flabbergasted too, because people came from all over to clean up the water, because right now the lake is closed to traffic, and they want to get it open really by the eclipse time. It's going to be tough, but because you still have refrigerators floating in the water and all sorts of different things out there. So they're working hard, but the reality started to set in a little bit yesterday when we had a couple of pretty major calls during the daytime, and we didn't have the sheriff's offices from all around the state there. And and the chief looked at me and said, this is going to be a long haul event. And I said, you're right. You're right.
What happens to those people that had their money invested in, do they get it back, or?
I have no idea. I mean, it's going to be, there's a lot of those questions. There's criminal charges potentially coming in situations that we didn't think we were going to have to expect. And again, that goes in the disaster plan that we'll consider. The prosecutor came up and toured the location and answered a bunch of questions because they're going to be heavily involved in certain circumstances. And then again, like I said, we had a drug overdose yesterday, and we had some other situations that are just normal everyday calls that you're trying to coordinate everybody over here. And for the most part, we didn't have any serious law enforcement calls until yesterday. And it's like, now that was a sign that things are starting to return back to normal.
Open again.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly right. Exactly right. So.
Well, Nathan, you mentioned the state park. I have a vested interest in that because we use it.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
That was not affected at all except for the water quality?
Correct.
As far as the lake quality?
Yeah, as far as the lake, the actual Indian Lake State Park itself was not in the path of the storm. It traveled south of there. They are good to go.
So the north side's pretty...
Yeah, the north side's unaffected.
Okay.
There were a few, I do know of some situations, power was out and that flooded some basements and things like that, but as far as any direct storm damage, there wasn't anything there. But to that point, in the village of Waynesfield may be able to recoup some of those costs too. Since our power outage was in direct relation to the tornado, we may be able to cover the cost of overtime for our crews here, maintaining the water systems and things like that. That would be a conversation we can have with Troy Anderson, the EMA director. But certainly those folks that had flooded basements that weren't in the direct path could, if it's declared a FEMA area, then we may be able to get reimbursed for that as well.
My basement was flooded. Yours was flooded too, wasn't it, Lisa?
I honestly don't know, because by the time I looked there, it was all gone, so I'm happy with it.
Wow.
Yeah.
3 feet.
Power came back on and went somewhere.
I apologize for Aaron and Nathan. I jumped the gun because our road was flooded, and within 10 minutes it was completely gone.
That's
I
okay.
got there and I thought, man, there's people coming down here, there's no lights, and they hit that water.
I couldn't believe how much water came down so quickly.
It was a
We
lot.
normally have water, complained about it for years, but my property behind our house was like a river.
Really?
right on our property, not in the
Wow.
back, because the water was flowing like a river down
Where
there.
you go down
Oh,
to.
the road in front of my house was a river.
Yeah,
And it was just.
well, all of that came our way.
Well, thankfully, we didn't see the hail that they saw. Did
I
you,
had
Mike?
hail.
Did you have
We
hail?
had hail, but it
Yeah, I had
wasn't
hail the size of a
big.
marble on the
Okay,
front
so,
porch.
so there were,
But it
there
didn't
were
last long.
several cruisers that were, that were severely damaged down there, baseball-sized hail had come down.
I'm sure.
In fact, one of the officers got hit in the back of the head, and he had to, he wasn't seriously injured, just more annoyed, but, he was trying to get somebody out of a vehicle that had been blown off the road, and he said, I thought somebody reached up and smacked me in the back of the head and realized it was hail coming down. He looked and he said it was bouncing like a tennis ball down the road. So, we were lucky that it didn't track a little further north. There was an unconfirmed report of a funnel cloud over Waynesfield, that the sheriff's office got a call on. Because there was a tornado that touched down to the west of us, and then there was another one to the east of us, it probably was a funnel cloud. I'm sure that, you know, it flew over here. We just were very lucky that it didn't come down.
It was a baby and it was growing.
I was telling Bob before the meeting started that we had hail, and we had this torrential rain, and I looked out, and we had those we call them whirligigs, they were not moving.
Really?
There wasn't an ounce of wind.
Huh.
So I wonder,
We heard that in the basement. It got deathly still.
yeah, just,
And that's never, no.
I know.
That's not.
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
That ain't.
It just-
I was shocked.
Yeah, because it could have been really bad if it did and our lot didn't go off. I mean,
Yeah.
It could have been bad regardless.
Right, yeah.
Well,
but I mean, if you have some kind of idea that safe shelter.
should we continue on?
Let's move on. Mayor's court report, there was $2,195 was deposited into the general fund for the mayor's court account for the month of January. Okay, old business. Rotate on that.
Nope,
Okay, can I get a motion? Is that it? That's not emergency, it's third reading. She didn't put it on there.
It says to declare an emergency in the
Yeah.
ordinance.
Okay,
Top paragraph.
need somebody to make a motion to declare emergency.
I'll make a motion to declare an emergency, to adopt ordinance 24-2-3, replacing ordinance 23-10-1.
And second,
Yes.
Fox,
Yes.
Ball,
Yes.
Hudson,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes,
Miller,
Yes.
Walty.
Yes.
okay, can we get a motion to adopt ordinance?
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance 24-2-3, an ordinance replacing ordinance 23-10-1.
I have a question. I just talked to Tim, and he was giving me the 15-minute, idea about overtime. And I don't remember which part of it, Lisa, you might have to help me. Talks about overtime, but it doesn't, I think it needs to, I think it's 6. I think it needs to, we need to
Section 9.
clarify, 9, I think we need to, yeah, it was 2. I think we need to clarify, beyond the 2 hours, I guess. As opposed to 15 minutes equaling an hour, 15 minutes equaling half an hour, and then when you get a half an hour, that would be the whole entire time. Save the
what are we currently doing here?
money.
I guess I'm confused, I don't know what the
Yeah,
question is.
you lost me. What are you talking about?
Okay, well, maybe it's not just that section,
They just received overtime for over 40 hours per week.
there was another part we talked about too.
When someone works overtime, or it's considered overtime, if they work 15 minutes over, do they get paid for a full hour? They get paid for quarter hours. I think that's the question.
Yay,
Yeah, it's
that's
a
what I
quarter,
wanted.
it's paid on a quarter hour.
Okay.
Does it say that
Thank
in
you,
there
Aaron.
anywhere?
If it doesn't say there, it probably should in the handbook, because
Okay,
I know it's somewhere.
okay, okay. I
Okay,
think that was,
that was my question.
okay. I thought we talked about that, I thought it was a quarter hour, I didn't know which way it went.
All right, get a second?
I'll second.
Fox,
Yes.
Ball,
Yes.
Hudson,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Wolfie.
Yes.
Okay. Any other old business? We move on to new business, resolution approving and authorizing execution of the retention agreement between Martin, Brown, Hall, and Harper, and the Village of Waynesfield, Ohio, and to declare an emergency. We get a motion to declare emergency.
Can I ask a question before this motion? Just for clarity.
Go ahead.
Okay. It's my understanding that we are, accepting this on a, per need. If Lynette cannot function in her capacity, that these people would then take over, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I'd make a motion to declare emergency and adopt resolution 24-3-1, a resolution approving and authorizing the execution of a retention agreement with Martin, Brown, Hall, and Harper and the Village of Waynesfield.
Second.
Fox,
Yes.
Ball,
Yes.
Hudson,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Wolfie.
Yes.
Can we get a first motion to adopt resolution 24-3?
Make a motion that we adopt resolution 24-3-1, resolution approving and authorizing execution of the retention agreement between Martin, Brown, Hall, and Harper et al. And the Village of Waynesfield.
Second.
Fox,
Yes.
Ball,
Yes.
Hudson,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Wolfie.
Yes.
Okay, resolution 24-3-2, approving and authorizing the execution of the material license agreement between Aero International Media Ltd. and the Village of Waynesfield, Ohio, and a declared emergency. Can we get a motion to declare emergency?
Nathan, I'm assuming this is the same company?
Yes, yeah. So what that is, the agreement that, you now have in front of you, was updated and accepted by Lynette and the, company. They were agreeable to all the language in there. Essentially, it's just, saying that, we're providing up what's already a public record to them for them to use for their TV program.
So they got some, you chasing a car or what?
Yeah, so I was assisting, actually, it was a pursuit that came out of Allen County, that came into Glades County and was a very lengthy pursuit. Long story short, the driver, supposedly had a gun to the passenger's head. We called off the pursuit due to safety, and then he called 911 and said, "I'm gonna shoot my passenger," so we resumed the pursuit, and, we were driving through fields, and it was pretty wild. So, somehow this production company from England, came across, this, and they want to use it for a TV show that they're gonna put on the, Investigation Discovery Channel. So, they're not gonna interview me on this one. I told them I could if they wanted to, but, sounds like they've got enough other people to talk to, but they like the footage, so that's what you're giving permission.
All right.
So we need a regular resolution or adopt the emergency?
Have to suspend the rules and declare an emergency.
I'll make a move to suspend the rules through Dean, adopt emergency resolution 24-3-2, approving and authorizing the execution of the materials license agreement between Aero International Media Ltd.
Second.
Fox,
Yes.
Ball,
Yes.
Hudson,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Wolfie.
Yes.
Okay, can you get a motion to adopt resolution 24?
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 24-3-2, resolution approving and authorizing the execution of the materials license agreement between Aero International Media.
Second.
Fox,
Yes.
Ball,
Yes.
Hudson,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Wolfie.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Then we have down disaster management plan.
I requested, Sarah to put that on the agenda, and then I saw that you had some of that in your report. And Nathan, you mentioned the safety committee. I know in Aaron's report, or your report, one of them, you mentioned that you and Aaron and Sarah we're working on a disaster plan. I guess I would want to know if the safety committee is also gonna be involved in that and, you know, where we're at with that.
Yeah, definitely think it needs to go to the safety committee, and then, as this morphs, include the township, include the sheriff's office, include EMA. The EMA has a disaster plan for the county, so, I will talk with Troy Anderson and get a copy of that report. I know he'll be more than willing to help, anything we need with that, but I think we do need one specific to the village of Waynesfield and even Wayne Township without talking to the fire department and trustees. We definitely need something specific for Waynesfield because there are unique issues that we'll face that may not be faced in other parts of the county. So, yes, absolutely, it should go to the safety committee to.
I know one of the things in the audit that I'm constantly being a bobblehead for, but, it talked about our disaster management plan in terms of data and financials, so we want to make sure that that's included. I know, with Indian Lake, you know, I'm sure they're having that same kind of trouble.
Yeah, their municipal building was destroyed.
Yeah, yeah, and so, you know, we want to make sure that we're prepared for that on an administrative level, as well as a logistics and physical levels with the rest of the community.
Yeah, absolutely.
Will we need any kind of, Lynette, give us any input on that?
As we move forward, there would need to be legal advice for sure. But we aren't there yet. We'll get a draft together, which again is going to be multifaceted, and that's why I want to look and see what the county has, and there may be other municipalities that have similar plans we can look at. Again, we don't need to reinvent the wheel, but there are certain structural things that we need to consider both at an administrative level and a practical level that we need to consider and put in place. But yeah, certainly before anything is presented to council to accept as the official disaster management plan, legal will have to go through that.
Okay.
You know, I don't know, but I'm assuming based on how those houses were constructed at the lake, that many of those people did not have basements to go to.
Yeah.
And I would venture to guess, I mean, we don't have a basement.
Yeah.
And so I know there are numerous people within town that do not have basements, and I don't know in terms of our public buildings, that may be something to think about in your disaster management is places where community members could shelter if need be.
So we've been down that road, and the frustrating part for me is we really only have one place in town that would have to access that. And so that's very frustrating. The library has a basement that is perfect for the need to put many people in there, maybe more than 100 people even in there. However, in the past communications with the county, they did not want to proceed with that, and so there's a problem. I mean, we have lots of homes in this village that would be absolutely obliterated if what went through Indian Lake comes through here, and people aren't going to have any place to go. You know, and there's even talks moving forward that those campgrounds down there, if a new campground goes in, there may be some requirements to put a tornado-safe building in X amount of feet to cover so many people in the new builds, but that doesn't affect really the current builds that are there. So, you know, those are all zoning issues that they're going to go through, but certainly it would be very difficult. You know, we talked about using this building at a certain point, but you can't because
Maybe that many people in that.
Right, that's exactly right. Well, and not to mention you have to have somebody that's willing to be here to staff it. I mean, lots of issues there. And one of the holdups with the library is they didn't want to grant access to just anybody to have access to the basement, and law enforcement, fire departments are going to be tied up in the event of a tornado. So who do you have that's trusted that could open that up? And then you have to have somebody monitoring it. And there were a lot of logistical concerns there. But from a practical position, you've got an outside entrance that you can get into the basement. They can seal off so you can't get up into the upper part of there. So that's really the only option.
It may be worth revisiting.
Yeah.
But that was going to be my question. Would they have access for upstairs?
Yeah, there's a way to keep those doors secured so you couldn't get upstairs. You could only get into the basement area.
So given what's happened at Indian Lake, it could be a different
It
discussion.
might, yeah, and there may be different commissioners. This was several years ago that this was talked about, so it could be, a different conversation that could be held now, but, I will, that'll be another thing I'll work with Troy on and talk to him and see if we can do that.
You can go in the disaster management plan.
Yeah,
What was the hang up?
liability. I mean, simply put, liability.
Okay, any other new business?
Are you guys gonna try to come up with a plan before I call a safety meeting, when this is disaster plan? You guys gonna try to come up with something?
I would say hold off on setting a date for
Okay,
the
yeah, that's what I wanted to do.
safety committee, because it may take a little bit of time to get to that point. I'd like to have something to bring to the safety committee and say, this is some information we've compiled, and given everything that's going on in the near future, it may take a little bit to do that, but we can certainly stay in contact and get something set up.
Okay.
Maybe before the next council meeting, maybe not, we'll see how
Get
it.
past the eclipse.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we gotta make it into April, and then pass that eclipse.
We'll get a motion to adjourn.
I get motion to adjourn.
Ball made the motion, second.
I'll second.
Fox?
Yep.
Ball?
Yes.
Hudson?
Yes.
Nichols?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Walty?
Yes.
Let me go shut the internet off.
And, the meeting is something I don't know, inventory. We have inventory for what's insured, and we would get hit.